Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Neye AKANFO NANASOM da, Medinde Ojirafo, Kwesi Ranembata Akan. Akwamumana Maruka Atifi Mu Ojirafo, Jiramai Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning Africans, Black people. Today is Akan Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirafo Kwesi Ranembata Akan. Ojirafo the Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojiramai, the purified nation Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. Jada say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We are opening up the chat room right now. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions or comments, simply hit number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised, and then we can interact with you on the phone line. For those who are new to the broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion on Joda on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of Ancestral Religion, NANASOM. We deal with Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion going back to Ancient Kanat, a title of Nubia. Akan people migrated from Ancient Kanat, the Kan land, a couple of thousand years ago, migrated west, reestablished ourselves in the western part of the continent, reestablished the Kan or Kanat Empire, the Nubian quote-unquote empire. In the western part of the continent, the Kanat Empire or the Ganat Empire. About 1,000 years later, we migrated further south after Muslim invasions and reestablished ourselves further south in the western part of the continent, in the regions of today's Ghana and Ivory Coast, and reestablished Akana civilization in that region. And then a few hundred years later, some of our people were forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity and Enslavement era. And this is how Akan people from ancient Kanat and from West Afuraikai ended up in North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean and Europe. We maintained our ancestral religious practices, even though we were forced into the Western Hemisphere. And because of that, we were guided and empowered by the Abosom, the deities, as well as the Nananom Nsamanfo, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, to wage war against the whites and their offspring and force an end to enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. We maintained our ancestral religious practices. Akan people in South America, in Suriname, for example, practice Ween tea, which is the Akan tradition in Suriname. Obia is the Akan tradition in Jamaica. Hoodoo is the Akan tradition in North America, from the Akan term undu, which means medicine from roots, trees, plant life. It also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit conjuring and so forth. This is what we do on AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion. For those who are on the phone line, we just want to make a check. If you can hear clearly on the phone line, hit the number 1 real quick. So we just want to make sure everybody can hear it clearly. If you're in the chat room, send us a quick message. Let us know you can hear. Okay, good. Tuesday nights we have Ojira, purification, where we deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but ancestral religion in general, showing how ancestral religion, NANASOM, impacts every aspect of lives. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion, no matter what form it takes, in essence is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. We say Ojira purification operationalizes NANASOM. Purification operationalizes our practice of ancestral religion, the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance, so that we can align every thought, intention, and action, divine order every moment of every day, because that is our culture as Afuraitkaitnut people. And when we make mistakes, we engage the ritual process. Make legitimate mistakes, we engage the ritual process to incorporate law, restore balance, and realign ourselves with order so that we can continue to function in creation in harmonious fashion. So we deal with various texts and ritual practices and so forth from our ancient culture, as well as the manifestation of our culture's ancestral religious practices here in North America. Hoodoo is the Akan tradition in North America. Juju is the Yoruba tradition in North America. Voodoo is the Ebe and Fang tradition in North America. Wanga is the Ovambo and other Bantu traditions in North America. Ngengang and Ngengang is the Fang and other Bantu traditions in North America. Gris Gris is Bambara and other Mindi traditions in North America and so forth. So we deal with those traditions we have maintained in our blood circles in this hemisphere. We're not dependent on anyone outside of our blood circles for our ancestral religious practices. We have received them, retained them, and transmitted them intergenerationally and transcarnationally through successive rebirth, reincarnation, manifestations. So this is what we deal with. On Agua, Marketplace Day, which is our Wukuda, Akwada Wednesday night, we deal with businesses, organizations, and institutions in the Afuraitkaitnut community who are serving the Afuraitkaitnut community in a positive capacity and who maintain their ancestral religious values in the process. And through our Okom economic development model, we support one business organization or institution Afuraitkaitnut per week for 52 weeks for optimal capital infusion. When we starve the beast and feed the pride, as we say, and take $10 or $15 we would have wasted with the White Narrow Spring, make that assessment on a weekly basis, and redirect those funds to the business, organization, or institution of the week. When one person does that, that's a transfer of $10 of capital. When 1,000 people engage that process, it's a transfer of $1,000 into the accounts of a Black business organization or institution so that they can share immediately within the community, full-time, permanently. They can serve us at a greater capacity, expand their products and services to us. It's a win-win situation, of course. If we do not engage that process, then we leave that $10,000 in the hands of our enemies, the White Narrow Spring, and by default, we are financing our own oppression. So we need to support our businesses on a consistent basis. This is what the Okom economic development model is. Start and be targeting one Afuraitkaitnut business per week for 52 weeks. On Yauda Thursdays, Yada, Abada Thursday nights, we have Amain-Sim, Affairs of the Nation, where we deal with specific issues that are confronting Afuraitkaitnut people, especially here in Ojira Mind, the purified nation, Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere, and how we approach these situations, resolve our issues from an Amaniye perspective, a nationist perspective. We deal with nationism, Amaniye, purification of nationalism. Nationism deals with the reality that an Oman, a nation, the Afuraitkaitnut Oman, a nation, living, breathing entity. We are cells within that great living, breathing entity, just like your organ gives birth to children, which are cells, and they serve the organ as well as executing their own individual and interdependent functions. We are cells of a greater organ, which is the Oman, the nation, which is governed by a specific abosom, when we align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with our divine function as cells, and that function is in harmony with the function of the greater organ of which we are a component part. that we have an approach to working with one another that is rooted in our cosmology, rooted in reality. So we have a nationist perspective on resolving our issues. So that's what we deal with on NANASOM Thursday nights. So for those who are unaware, we had our Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference a couple of weeks ago. People came out from different parts of the country. Here in Washington, D.C., this was our second annual Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference. We had people come out from Kansas and Florida, Connecticut, Jersey, Baltimore, of course, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, a number of different places around the country, all coming out to support and learn about ancestral religion born of the blood circles of our people here in the Western Hemisphere. We had a great presentation by Wakili, Sister Wakili Oyinola, dealing with divination, Pan-African crystal oracle divination, dealing with sacred mineral life, going back to that ancient practice. We talked about the divinity Kunwimu, or so-called Kunum, and the quote-unquote famine stele. In that particular stele, when they talk about the reason why the river was not flowing at its proper height, Kunwimu, or the divinity Kunum, said that we must begin to reestablish our ancestral religious practices. And because the shrines of the deities had fallen into disrepair, there was a 7-year famine in ancient Kemet. And when the Mmusuo Kese representative down to the south to see what was taking place, why there was a famine, why the river had not risen to its proper height in 7 years, why the people were starving, he found out that Kunwimu, the divinity, governed the release of the river, the Hapi River. So the Mmusuo, the king, went down to the south himself, invoked the divinity Kunwimu in his shrine, and Kunwimu, a so-called Kunum, informed him that because we had not been engaged in ancestral religious practice and the shrines of the deities had fallen into disrepair, this is why the river had not been flowing. But once they reestablished their ancestral religious practice, then Kunwimu would allow the rivers to flow once again and abundance would return to the land. They identify in that text the sacred stones that were used, established the shrines, and sacred stones are connected to the deities of the shrines, part of the mineral life in the earth mother that are sacred to our people, used as centers of resonance, shrines of resonance for specific divinities that we use to heal, protect, to divine, and so forth. So Sister Wakili talked about that in detail. We did a presentation on Adebisa and Ojiraman divination and the purified nation of Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. We also had Sister Kalinda Laveau out of New Orleans, Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau, who submitted a video presentation. We also had our sister in Cincinnati, Mama Mawusi Ashakir, who submitted a video presentation on Juju, the Yoruba tradition in North America, and so forth. So we're going to be putting that information out on the Etchy Sign page. We also released our book, Etchy Sign Religious Reversion Journal. That is out as well. So all that information is on the page, and we'll be posting those videos very soon. Our next event, large event as far as conferences, we have 3 conferences on a yearly basis. Our second annual Ojiraman Purified Nation Conference, the Purified Nation of Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. So Ojira means purification, Oman means nation, Oman also means the land of the setting sun, the west. Ojiraman is the purified nation of Afuraitkaitnut people in the west. Our people, that is our designation for Afuraitkaitnut people, African black people in the Western Hemisphere, descendants of those who were forced into enslavement, but freed ourselves, waged war against the whites and their offspring, maintained our ancestral religious practices, which empowered us to wage war and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. We're having that Amaniye conference focused on nationism, the purification of nationalism, dealing with the 7 principal values of nation building, methods of food production and preservation, methods of curing disease, establishing a military structure, establishing institutions, educational, training, religious and cultural, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence, building of homes on acquired land, the manufacturing of clothing, these 7 principal values of nation building. We'll be addressing from an Amaniye or nationist perspective. This is our 2nd annual conference. It will be held June 24th here in Washington, D.C. We've already posted some of the preliminary information, and we've released the trailer for the conference. You can see that on our Fashe page. Now, let's get into this information for tonight. Raet, the creatress of the universe, mother of Afuraitkaitnut, African people. So, we often hear about the god Ra, the Ntoro, or the divinity Ra. But we often do not hear about Raet, the Ntoro, or the so-called Neterto Ntoro, as properly vocalized. Raet. Ra is the creator, but Raet is the creatress. The only reason we don't hear about Raet, people are studying different things, is because our people follow the misinformation of the whites and their offspring. So when the whites and their offspring will come in contact with information or sculptures, paintings, carvings, reliefs of Raet, they would acknowledge the fact that Raet is the creatress, Ra is the creator, but they would say, well, that's not important. We're just going to focus on Ra. And they just wouldn't pay anything to her or just pay lip service to her or just something very minimal with regard to examination, with regard to her functions in creation, or just say, well, she was just a wife or she's just a female form of the real deity Ra, so we're just going to focus on Ra. This is what the whites and their offspring, of course, will do because they are spiritually disordered. They have a disdain for female. They have a disdain for the human being in reality, the true human being, the Afurakani human being. But they have a particular disdain for the female. So, of course, they denigrate the female across the board, including when they manufacture fake pseudo-religious traditions after they learned about subject less than 1% and even corrupted the less than 1% that they took to manufacture fake religions of fictional cartoon character deities who never existed. Yahweh, Allah, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Buddha, Brahman, the various characters in the Bible and so forth. So, of course, they denigrate the female because by nature they are dissexual, homosexual, sexually deviant entities, the whites and their offspring. That means white Europeans, white Americans, white Asians, white Hindus, white Hispanics, white Latinos, white Arabs, white pseudo-Native Americans, who are just migrant invading Asians. All non-black people are spiritually discordant. They do not have the capacity to align with the forces in creation, and therefore they manifest that discordance inclusive of their expression of sexual deviance. And that manifests in the denigration of the female, which naturally or unnaturally is a denigration of the male as well. So they don't have any respect for that. So when they see Raet, they minimize who she actually is. When they see Amen, but they also see Amenet, or just say, well, she was just a wife, she wasn't very important in the cosmology, all of this other nonsense. And they do the same thing with various other divinities. And then our people, aping the whites and their offspring, foolishly repeat that same nonsense. So you will hear fools repeating such lines. Raet was not very important in the cosmology. Amenet was not very important in the cosmology. They established temples of Rait and Ra, temples of Amen, shrines of Amen, crafts of Amen, all of these kinds of things. They don't deal with Amenet. They deal with various other major female divinities, except for the ones that the whites and their offspring put forward. So since the whites and offspring talk about Aset and corrupt her into Isis, then the Negroes will run around and talk about Aset. If they talk about Sekhmet or Ma'at a little bit, then they'll talk about that. But when they talk about other divinities, our people don't embrace that. The main reason is because in reality you cannot understand the culture of ancient Kemet and cannot unless you engage the ritual practice. Our people established culture founded upon religious practice. We wrote the book Rait and Ra, the etymology and cosmology of religion and spirit. That's one of our 25 books. Religion and spirit, etymologically and cosmologically, come from the terms Rait and Spirit from ancient Kemet. Religion and spirituality is the same thing. It is fake religion incongruent with spirituality. So this idiotic notion spirituality is different from religion is foolishness. Once again, we have ate from the whites and their offspring. We didn't look at the etymological origin of the term. We didn't look at the cosmology that gave birth to these terms. We've done that in our book, and it's the only book that has ever been published by Black or non-Black scholars who have given the proper etymology of the terms religion and spirit and their cosmological foundation rooted in deities with the same name. Now, when you engage in ritual practice, when you actually invoke these deities, when you invoke Ra, when you invoke Raet, when you invoke Amen, when you invoke Amenet and communicate directly with them in your ritual practice, individually as well as with your family, with your children, and the deities come forth, they possess, they communicate so that they can be seen and felt and learned from. Adults as well as children communicate with these divinities, see them, experience them, then we have direct experiential knowledge of who these deities are. So we know who Ra is, but we also know who Raet, we know who Amen is, we know who Amenet is, we know who Ma'at actually is, we know who the male divinity Ma'ar actually is. So when you have individuals talking about Amen, Ra, Ptah, and so forth, but they don't know who Amenet, Raet, Ma'ar, and these other divinities are, it betrays the fact that they're simply aping what the whites and their offspring put forward, painting it black, putting forward pseudo-metaphysical and pseudo-spiritual, quote-unquote, teachings, pseudo-esoteric teachings that they gleaned from the whites and their offspring and blackened up ancient culture, which it is not. So, the ancestral religious practices of ancient Kemet and Kannat, as we have proven in our various books, still exist and is still operant all over Afuraitkaitnut, and the religious practices of the people, and continues to be operant within those same religious practices as manifest in the Western Hemisphere. In Hoodoo, the Akan tradition; in North America, Juju, the Yoruba tradition; Voodoo, the Ewe Bone tradition; Wanga, Ngengang, Gris Gris, and so forth. Our various traditions, Obia in Jamaica and so forth, these various traditions, all of these various deities from ancient Kemet still exist, of course. They are forces in creation, so of course they never stop existing, but we still invoke them by the same names and descriptive titles in our ancestral languages today as we did back then. They still communicate with us, they still possess, they still speak through divination, they still heal, they still protect, they still give guidance. That's unbroken. Only people engaged in religious practice can talk with some experience and with some knowledge of these texts. So we're going to talk about matricircular inheritance tonight. We talked about Raet, the creatress of the universe, mother of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, in various cultures on the continent of Afuraitkaitnut into the Western Hemisphere. We have matricircular inheritance, matricircular succession, meaning through the female, you inherit the right to rule based on the female matriclan that you're part of. In the Akan tradition, there are 7 matriclans or Mmusuo matriclans that every Akan person is descendant of one of those clans, is a member of one of those clans. Those 7 matriclans are headed up by 7 great ancestresses. If you're not descended from one of those 7 great ancestresses, spirit genetically descendant from one of those 7 great ancestresses, then you're not Akan. Those 7 great ancestresses are children of the 7 Heru divinities, also called Abrewa Nani Mba, the great elder woman or elderess woman and her children in Akan culture. They're called the seven Het-Heru in ancient Kemet. They're the spiritual forces that animate what the white star spring called the Pleiades. But these are spiritual forces in creation, female divinities. And the so-called Pleiades is just their stellar shrine. And just like the sun is a shrine for Ra and Raet, they utilize that sun, the Aten, the Atenit, as a physical transmitter of their spiritual energy, but then, of course, their spiritual energy enters into the planet Earth, enters into our bodies, possesses us, and so forth. So on every level, stellar, solar, lunar, earthly, physical, there are shrines for these divinities on every level of creation. The seven Het-Heru operate through those seven stars. Those are just shrines for these spiritual forces in creation, these female divinities, and they transmit their energy to Earth, but they also possess and communicate with those seven great ancestors, people who are children of those specific clans, those master clans. So everybody in our Akan culture is descended from one of those seven great females. And our right to rule is inherited through those seven great females. When you look at the culture of ancient Kemet, you will find that it's a mattress circular inheritance as well. Heru is the son of Alsar and Alset. He is the one who is given rulership after Alsar dies. He is the son of Alset and Alsar, but he is not the firstborn of Alsar. The firstborn male of Alsar is called Babi, which is a baboon divinity. He was the firstborn of Alsar, but he didn't receive the right to rule. It was the child of Alset with Alsar that was given the right to rule. The rulership came through Alset, not Alsar's firstborn son, Babi. So, the same is true in the Akan tradition. There's a matricircular inheritance, matricircular or so-called matrilineal succession. The reason we talk about that is because we want to talk about that matrilineal succession or matricircular succession with regard to these deities. We're going to go back to the origin of creation. You have Amen and Amenet, the great father and great mother, who are two halves of the great divine whole, which we call the supreme being. Amen is called Nyame or Nyame in Akan. Amenet or Amenat is called Nyamewa in Akan, the great father and the great mother. And we did an article, of course, showing why Ari Amen, which is a man in ancient Kemet, becomes Ari Amen or Anyame in Akan, Nyambe in Lotsi, and Njambe and Herero, all across the continent, various forms of this term, Ari Amen, a title of Amen, and so forth, the same with Nyamewa. Now, Amen and Amenet are the great hidden beings. The term men means hidden, but it also means stable, permanent, fixed, abiding. Amen and Amenet are great, abiding men. Everything proceeds from Amen and Amenet. They are the great beings. The process of creation, the first thing that they give birth to is Ka and Kaet, which manifests as the black substance of space, that all-pervasive black substance within which all things will take up residence within. All the planets, sun, moon, stars, and so forth operate within Ka and Kaet, that all-pervasive energy and matter. Ka is the male divinity, Kaet is the female divinity. This is the divine consciousness, or quote-unquote soul, of Amen and Amenet. Just like you have the capacity to employ your consciousness, form thoughts, ideas, luminous images in your mind and so forth, you can employ your consciousness to generate an idea, generate an image, generate innovation and so forth. You have that capacity. You're like Amen or like Amenet, employing your consciousness, your Ka or your Kaet, that soul divinity, that intelligence to generate what you desire to come into being. You can also direct your consciousness to shut those images down and generate new images of what you desire to come into being. Amen and Amenet first gave birth to Ka and Kaet, releasing those primordial sound vibrations. When we look at Amen and Amenet in the form of the great goose and the great gander, they begin to cackle. when geese begin to cackle, when they're mating, they send forth sound vibrations, and those sound vibrations begin to move matter and so forth. They show Amen and Amenet in the form of the great primordial goose and gander. When they're about to mate, they begin to cackle, and they say ga and ga, just like a goose or gander. Title of a goose or gander in ancient Kemet, a ga or a ganga. And this is why Amen and Amenet are called the Ganga Ur and Ganga Es Urit, the great Ganga male and the great Ganga female, the great goose and the great gander. And that ga becomes ka, and it releases the great black substance of space, just like a mass of clear fluid being released and filling up a space, that black substance. Everything exists within that expansive, attractive black substance. Then they give birth to Hehu and Hehut, the male and female forces of expansion and contraction. He and Hehu means breath. It also means heat. It also means fire. It also means boundless and eternal. Hehu are the male and female forces of expansion and contraction, boundless and eternity. Fire, heat, breath. Hehu and Hehut sound like Hehu, like breathing in and out. These primordial divinities, Amen and Amenet, then Ka and Kaet, and then Hehu and Hehut. When you put heat to fire or heat to water, fire to water, and so forth, you have water in a pot, and you put heat to it, that expansion and contraction begins to make the water begin to move. That water is a clear substance. It can take any form or take any shape. That is akin to the black substance of space, which is the all-pervasive consciousness of Amen and Amenet. It can take any form, take any shape. When they applied Hehu and Hehut to that black substance, that black quote-unquote water, so to speak, that black substance, that expansion and contraction within the black substance caused the black substance to begin to move and begin to generate the kind of energy that could give birth eventually to any kind of shape, form, and so forth. So expansion and contraction, boundless, eternal, just like breath in eternal, you're constantly breathing in and out whether you're sleeping or not. Hehu is that expansion and contraction, the male and female forces of expansion and contraction. That black substance began to move and it began to wave, just like heat being applied to water in a pot. Eventually, the water begins to wave. The birth of waves within the water is the same as the birth of waves within the black substance. That wave energy moving back and forth within the black substance, Vodoun and Nunet, the male and female forces of primordial energy. And that wave energy, just like it moves, the waves move throughout the pot of water, going back and forth, carrying energy from one side of the pot or area of the pot to the other. Now the wave energy moving within the black substance is activating that substance. And energy is now moving, expanding, and contracting within the black substance. Nun and Nunet. And even when you say Nun and Nunet, that Nun energy is a vibratory frequency. Now energetic power is happening. That's that magnetic kind of force. That electromagnetic force is moving within the black substance. After the heat and breath cause it to begin to expand and contract, now you give birth to waves of energy. Now energy is moving. You have activity and so forth. Nun and Nunet, the male and female forces of energy within the black substance, creating waves within the black substance, begin to wave so rapidly, and they begin to fuse and wave so rapidly that the waves turn into spheres. Just like when the pot of water begins to wave at first, it begins to wave so rapidly it begins to boil. And what happens is the waves move so rapidly that they begin to form spheres within the water. And the spheres then rise up out of the water as bubbles, and then they pop. The wave energy of Nun and Nunet, or Nun and Nanet, begin to wave so rapidly within the black substance of space that they begin to form spheres. And those spheres rise up and explode in the black substance of space, and they begin to spiral through the black substance of space. That first explosion is the explosion of fire and light, Ra and Raet. They are given birth from Nun and Nunet, and they rise up out of Nun and Nunet as the first fire and light within creation, spiraling through the black substance. As those energies of fire and light begin to spiral through the black substance, they are carving out black spheres. That black substance is a thick black substance. And because it began to expand and contract under the energy of Hehu and Hehu, began to wave and generate electromagnetic force and so forth, which will be manifested as electromagnetic force in creation. Then they give birth to these spheres of fire and light that carve out these black spheres. And then these first black spheres are carved out by the energy of Ra and Raet, become first black body radiation. And of course, stars are called black bodies in physics, made of that black substance of space. And those first black bodies were penetrated by the fire energy of Ra and Raet and became illuminate. And those illuminate black bodies became the first stars. And this is how creation comes into being. So we're talking about matrix circular succession. If you talk about Amenet, the great mother, giving birth to Hehu and Hehut, and Hehu and Hehut give birth to Nun and Nunet, and Nun and Nunet give birth to Ra and Raet. On the matrix circular side, you have Amenet, who is the great mother. Her daughter is Kaet. Another daughter is Nanet, and then Nanet give birth to Ra and Raet. So Raet is the daughter of Nanet and the granddaughter of Amenet. So the creator and creatress, Ra and Raet, the creator and creatress who moved through the great black substance, began to carve out black spheres and began to create the stars and so forth. That penetrates the stars, and eventually as the stars cool off, then their projectiles become planets and so forth, and the energy of Ra and Raet penetrates those primordial black spheres that will become planets, including our planet. Their energy penetrated this black sphere, separated the denser portions from the lighter portions, an atmosphere formed. The earth is covered by water and so forth. The energy of Ra and Raet moved through the primordial earth at the core of earth and so forth, causes volcanic eruptions on the ocean floor, causing a portion of that ocean floor to rise upward, to break through the surface of the water, to become the first highland, which is the first Ka and Kaet, the divine hill and so forth, the first landmass of earth. And then Ra and Raet move through that first landmass, penetrate that landmass with their fiery energy to enliven it and give it vitality and life. Ra and Raet are moving through that first landmass, which is called Ka and Kaet, a hill. A highland is called Ka and Kaet in ancient Kemet. Just like a flat land is called Ta and Taet, a flat plain, but a highland or hill is called Ka and Kaet. When Ra and Raet's energy moves from the first primordial hill, the first landmass of earth, the first Ka and Kaet, as their spirits moving within that matter, they are called Afura and Afuraet. Afu meaning flesh, also meaning house or place of residence. When Ra is moving through matter, he's called Afura. Ra moving through the Afu, the flesh. When Raet is moving through matter, that spiritual force moving through matter, just like fire being drawn into your body, air being drawn into your body through the lungs, you pull that air into your body, now it's moving inside of your flesh. It's encased in your flesh. When you breathe out, it's no longer encased in your flesh, but when you pull it inside your body, now it's circulating inside of something. When Ra and Raet is moving through matter, when Raet is moving through the matter becomes the flesh of Raet. She's called Afuraet. So Afura and Afuraet, the creator and creatress moving through the primordial Ka and Kaet. That Ka and Kaet, that primordial raised mound, becomes the Ka of Afura, or Afuraka, the land of the creator. It becomes the Kaet of Afura, the land of the creatress. And of course, we've proven that in our book, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut, the origin of the term Africa. Of course, Africa does not come from a Roman general or any of that other nonsense. But we're talking about matrix circular succession. So you have Amen and Amenet, who are the great being, the foundation of all things. They generate the black substance of space. which will contain and energize all things. They give birth to Hehu and Hehu, expansion and contraction, the vitality of life, the breath of life in the black substance. Then they give birth to Nun and Nunet, the energetic movement, activity within the black substance, primordial energy that can take any form. And Nun and Nunet give birth to Ra and Raet, the fire and light that will come forward and begin to create all things in creation. Amen and Amenet direct Ra and Raet to create. Amen and Amenet are the supreme being. Ra and Raet are the creator and creatress. The creator and creatress are the grandchildren of the supreme being. The creator is not the same as the supreme being. They are not the children of the supreme being. They are the grandchildren. That cosmology is replicated all over Afuraitkaitnut, wherever our people exist in our various languages, into the Western Hemisphere. It is the whites and offspring who put forth the foolish notion that the creator and the supreme being is the same entity. And then, of course, they got rid of the creatress altogether. So, when you talk about Amenet, and then Kaet, and Hehut, and then Nonet, and then Raet, you're talking about matrix circular succession. The next piece is Raet giving birth to different divinities. Raet is the mother of Tehuti and Seshat. Raet is the mother of the great mother divinity Neat, as well as Kunwimu, or so-called Kunun, who are a pair as well. Very often when people are reading these various texts and they don't see too much information about these deities, or they see some misinformed editorializing that the whites and their offspring do with regard to these deities, they can't deal with the matricircular or patricircular succession and manifestation of these divinities. So they don't know what their lineage is, their blood circle is, they don't know what their function in creation is. And they're not dealing with them experientially, so they don't know what they are. We've talked about in the past that Tehuti is the son of Ra, the son of Raet. You'll find this in the text of ancient Kemet. You'll also find that the great mother divinity Neat, who we did a broadcast on, she is also a child of Raet. We talked about the black substance of space, and now the whites and offspring call it dark energy and dark matter, which makes up 99+% of the known universe. This is something that they've just recently discovered. Prior to that, they thought space was simply a void. Then they began to find that space is actually a black substance, energy, and matter functioning together, which is 99+% of all things in existence. Our people have always understood that and recognized that the dark energy is Ka, the dark matter is Kayat, and we've always invoked these deities. And that black substance is the great body of melanin within Amen and Amenet. Just like your body is saturated with melanin, your organs sit within that black substance internally. The body of melanin of Amen and Amenet is the Ka and Kayat. And all the planets, suns, moons, stars, and all things exist within that black substance. All created entities exist within that black substance, within the great black Amenet and Amen. So what's on the macrocosmic level is also on the microcosmic level. So we've always understood Ka and Kayat in that regard. The same thing is true with regard to the physical body. So when we talk about the matricircular succession, Nun and Nunet, in the black substance, that wave energy within the black substance, similar to the electromagnetic energy that's moving through your abatum or your melanin within your body. The black substance in your body, melanin, is an electromagnetic conductor of energy. Of course, we have electromagnetic energy moving through our system. Your nervous system runs on electromagnetic energy. You can, of course, rub your feet on a carpet, touch a doorknob, or touch somebody and shock them. If someone's heart fails and they're rushed to a hospital, they take two electric pads and rub them together and stay clear and put the electricity on the heart of the guards. Their heart just like someone's jump-starting a car, because our nervous system runs on electromagnetic energy. When you have normal stores of melanin within your body, those electromagnetic transmissions operate at an optimal level. If you are melanin deficient, melanin recessive, then those transmissions do not operate at an optimal level. That includes the melanin within the organs and systems. That includes the melanin, the neuromelanin within the brain. When you have a lack of melanin or a lack of quality melanin and so forth, then you don't have those proper transmissions. So that electromagnetic energy moving within the black substance of space originally manifests as the energy of Nun and Nunet. They begin to wave within the black substance. Within your body, you have that energy moving within your black substance. Nun and Nunet on the feminine side, that's Nunet or Nanet, that energetic substance, energetic power within the black substance. But as creation is manifest, there's another substance that's also created within which things are nourished, which is called Mu and Mut, which is water. Just like we have black substance, melanin, all throughout our system, we also have water, of course, all throughout our body. 70+% of our bodies are water. The same thing on the planet, Asase-Afu, the planet Earth, 70+% of the planet is water. Not only the oceans and so forth, but in the atmosphere is moisture as well. So you have the black substance of space, Kan Kaet, and the energy moving through that black substance is Nun and Nunet. They carry with their waves of energy all the way back and forth throughout the entire black substance of space. But then when the divinities Mu and Mut, the male and female forces of water, the primordial oceans and so forth, Mu and Mut are created by Ra and Raet, then there's an energetic substance that operates through water. Nun and Nunet are the energetic substance that operate through the black substance of space, that wave energy within the black substance of space. But the wave energy that operates through that primordial water, whether it's the water on Earth, water in the atmosphere, water in the amniotic fluid within the mother, water within the seminal fluid of the male dealing with creation and so forth, that carries the sperm cell, that primordial water within the seminal fluid, and then you have the water within the blood of the female that carries the ovum, and when those two sources of water meet, then the sperm cell and the ovum can meet, and then a conjoining can take place, and then a conception can take place. So you have the water substance, an energetic substance, a wave energy within the water. The wave energy within the water on the male side is Kunwemu or Kunun. This is why we talked about he releases the Nile flood or the Hapi flood and so forth. On the female side, it's the female divinity Neat. And we did an entire broadcast on Neat. So that mattress circular succession, Amenet, Kaet, Hehut, Nanet, Raet, and you also have Mut, the primordial water, primordial ocean on the feminine side. You also have Neat, the energy, wave energy moving through water, whereas Nunet is the wave energy moving through the black substance of space. This is why in the text of ancient Kemet, you'll find that Raet is called the Seneket Neat. She's called the nurse mother of the great goddess Neat. Many people look at Neat and she's one of the great mother divinities. And they'll say Neat is the mother of Ra and so forth. And then people jump forward and say, well, Neat must be the primordial mother. And she originally was the original mother before patriarchy came and reduced her to a lesser goddess. And in reality, beginning, there was just Neat. Totally inaccurate. Inaccurate cosmologically, but also inaccurate because white lesbians, dykes, and so forth are trying to put forward white female supremacy. They paint the ancient goddesses white and so forth. They want to put forth their dissexual, perverse ideas, just like the white male is dissexual, and they want to put forward a homosexual, dissexual male divinity who doesn't need a female. The white dissexual females want to put forward a white great female divinity who doesn't need a male. So they put that foolishness into a cosmology, a corrupted cosmology, and put it forward as though it's something revolutionary. People jump on it and blacken it up and put forward, in reality, a dissexual, perverted pseudo-cosmology dressed in black, or sometimes red, black, and green, and try to promote that to our people as though it's something revolutionary and some ancient revival of some teachings. But it's pure stupidity. We're talking about master circular succession, and Neat is one of the great-great-great-granddaughters of Amenet. But Raet is her nurse mother. This is why she's called Seneket Neat. Senek means to suckle or to nurse. Seneket is the nurse mother or the wet nurse of the goddess Neat. So when Ra and Raet begin to carve out the spheres in the black substance and creating stars and planets and so forth, Pataz in the center of Earth, and other planets and stars and so forth, fashion their forms and so forth. But then Mu and Mut are created, the primordial ocean that surrounds these planets and surrounds these different entities and so forth, including our bodies as well, and the bodies of plant life and mineral life and animal life and so forth. That primordial water, Mu and Mut, has an energy substance within it, a wave energy moving within it that is Kunwimu or Kunum and Neat. And they're the ones who are conjoining. They call Neat the great weaver, weaving that energy together. When the sperm and ovum unite, Kunum, his name literally is to conjoin or to fashion. They show Kunum fashioning and conjoining the soul of the person, the Kaokai of the person, and their body, and conjoining them on his divine potter's will, fusing them together, just like the sperm and ovum are fused together in the womb, and then they're conjoined. And the chromosomes are conjoined and mixed together. And Neat is called the great divine weaver. She weaves these things together. So what was an element from the father, who was separate from the mother, when they came together to unite, there was a conjoining, and then there's a weaving. That weaving energy, that wave energy, weaving energy, that's the energy of Neat within the primordial water, in the body of the female, that amniotic fluid also within the water, within the blood, and so forth. But Raet is the one who gave birth to Neat. She's the nurse mother of Neat. If you look at the womb of the earth and so forth, the primordial waters move on the surface, the oceans, but then, of course, the moisture in the sky, energy within the moisture, of course, is Neat, that wave energy, and her name is spelled with that wavy line for the N, the N sound. So they'll show her as a great cow goddess in the sky. The sky is there, the moisture is there. They'll call her the divine swimmer, Met, or the great swimmer and so forth, because she's swimming in the sky, the great cow and so forth. She's the wave energy within the primordial waters, within the amniotic fluid of the female, but also within the amniotic fluid of the planet Earth and so forth, weaving that energy together. But then sunlight penetrating the earth, penetrating the atmosphere, and then eventually reaching us. That means that the sunlight doesn't come directly and touch us. It has to go through the filter of the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is full of moisture, so it has to go through the moisture of Neat and the energy of Neat, and then she passes it on to us. So in that regard, Neat gives birth to Ra. Neat is the mother of Ra when Ra moves through the planet and comes to us. Great ancestor, great ancestress. Or you yourself when you were an ancestor or an ancestress, and you saw your great-great-great-great-granddaughter growing up in America. And eventually she grew up, became a woman, and married her husband. And it was time for you as a great ancestor or ancestress to return to Earth. She has been watching to you and to you, and you've been dating her ever since she was a child. And now she's full grown and she's ready to draw her great ancestor or ancestress back into the world. So when they populate, their energy draws you into the womb of that great-great-great-great-granddaughter. And now she becomes your mother, and 40 weeks later you're born into the world. you were the great elder or elderess who moves through the great, 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 great grandchild, and now she becomes your mother, and you are born into the world, and she raises you back into the knowledge of who you actually are, to recall your ancestral identity. In the same fashion, daughter of Amenet. She's the daughter of Raet and Ra, of course. But when it's time for Ra and Ra's energy to move through and penetrate the earth, get into the atmosphere, move through that energetic substance within the atmosphere so it can get to our people, get to us, and plant life and mineral life and Afurakanu, human life and animal life and so forth, then Neat, quote unquote, gives birth to Ra. That's still a mattress circular succession or inheritance, because once Ra moves to Neat, he brings the energy that's within Neat into the earth, and then we take that energy into our bodies and so forth, and then we receive that as well. So we're talking about that mattress circular inheritance from these great mother divinities. When they talk about Ra crying and his eye giving birth to men and women, that's in a specific regard, a euphemism. When they talk about Rait, Ra, or the eye of Ra, the term ba'ai, Rait, ba'ani, it doesn't mean eye, but it also means to create, to make, to do. So one of the titles of Raet is Rait Ra, or the eye of Ra. Other divinities inherit that title from their great mother, Raet. So you have Tefnut, who's called the eye of Ra. You have Sekhmet, who's called the eye of Ra. You have Mut, who's called the eye of Ra. You have Het Heru, called the eye of Ra. From their great mother, Raet. She's the first who's the eye of Ra. On one hand, just like a person will say their wife is the apple of their eye and so forth. They only have eyes for their wife, or their wife says they only have eyes for their husband. That's the one they behold. That's the one that they are in harmony with. That's the one they link up with, who they're united with, they're bound with, and so forth. That's the only one that's in their consciousness. That's their balance. That's their eye. When you open the eyes, that's the eye to the ka at the soul. It's also the eye to the root, that quote-unquote third eye and so forth, that illuminate center within in the brain and the physical body, but also in the spiritual head. So in one regard, it's talking about that balance of the male and female. In the other regard, it's talking about arit, meaning to make or to do. What is arit, meaning to make or to do, referencing? Asking, why is the female called the eye, not just the eye to see, but the arit, Ra, the eye of Ra, meaning the one who creates, arit, makes, arit, does or to do, arit. What is it about the female that makes or does something in relationship to the male? The male impregnates the female, the sperm cell swims through the fluid, that seminal fluid, that energy of kunwimu and neat within the seminal fluid, carrying that sperm cell so it can swim, and then it connects with the ovum that's within the blood, which is within that primordial fluid of neat and kunwimu within the blood and so forth. But once the sperm cell penetrates ovum, then the ovum collapses around the sperm cell and then makes something out of that fusion. And it begins to fashion and form within the womb. It doesn't fashion and form within the body of the male. It's made into a baby within the shrine or the womb of the female. So arit, meaning to make or to do. Once she captures the sperm cell, then she makes something out of it. She arit, she makes, she does, she fashions, she creates, so to speak. And it's, the location, of course, is within the female. So that's one of the differences, of course, between the male and female. We have complementary balance, complementarity, and so forth. But one of the unique things, of course, about the female is once, of course, you have the balance of the sperm cells, the balance of the ovum. Fusion is balance as well. but the location for the next 40 weeks that's being fashioned, the child is being fashioned, that takes place, of course, within the female, so she makes something out of it. So she's the Rait Ra. She's the maker of what Ra has given, what he has contributed, and so forth. But there's also a spiritual umbilical cord from the male encompassing the child. And the same thing is true not only with the Ra and Raet, but any male who's engaged in ancestral religious practices. They know that just like the female has a physical umbilical cord that the baby is attached to, the male has a spiritual or energetic umbilical cord that's connected to the baby and the child for the rest of the child's life. So even if the father is away from the child on another continent, there's a direct connection through his patrilineal or patricircular inheritance and the divinities who are connected to that patriclan inheritance, connected to the child throughout the course of their lives. This is where some of that protection divinities of the patriclan. So, but the location takes place within the female, so she's the Rait Ra in that regard. Now, that's the reason why she has that title. Raet is the original Rait Ra, or the eye of Ra, or the one who makes what Ra contributes into something. There's expansion and contraction. You can have something growing and developing, but if there's no brakes put on that growth and development, then you never have an entity. If something just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing, expanding with no contraction, you never have a thing. So the male's energy is expansive, the female's energy is contractive. Once the sperm cell penetrates, expansion takes place, but then there's breaks around the expansion so a form can take place. And that's the making or the fashioning, the creating, the Rait within the womb of the female. The Raet is the first one to create or make or form has been contributed by Ra into an entity, that contractive force. And then she passes on that capacity to other divinities. She passes it on to Het Heru. So Het Heru can take on that title in her functioning. She passes that on to Sekhmet. So she can take on that title and function of Rait Ra within her unique energetic configuration. She passes it on to Tefnut, so she can take it on in her unique energetic configuration. She passes it on to Mut, so she can take it on in her unique energetic configuration. But it all comes from that matricircular inheritance from their great ancestress, which is Raet. Our people receive that as well. Ra and Raet are the creator and creatress. They contribute to us our energetic capacity. The divine living energy that operates through us is called the Ba, if you're a male, Baet, if you're female, Bra in Akan, and so forth. Same title. Sometimes the Ba is shown as a bird with a bowl of incense burning. Sometimes the Ba is shown as a bird with the head of the human being to whom the Ba belongs. The Ba and the Baet. When you see it as a bird with the head of the specific human being, if you look within your chest, the heart and lung complex, the folded down wings of the bird and the breast of the bird is the folded down wings of the lungs, and the heart is the breast of the bird, and of course the head is your head, so that little bird is sitting in your chest, and when the wings expand or the lungs expand, then the breath or the wind comes in and so forth, and you become animate. And the expansion and contraction of the lungs in concert with the beating palpitation of the heart is sending that blood, that purified, oxygenated blood throughout your system. The blood carries the energy, the divine living fire of the Ba and Baet within you. That little bird is sitting within you. You can direct that divine living energy to fly throughout your body, fly throughout different aspects of your physical body, directing energy to your arms, legs, body, so you can act and be active and function, directed to your spirit body, different divisions of your spirit body, so you can align yourself, realign yourself, engage in divination, engage in ritual practice, so you can find out what you need to do, what you shouldn't be doing, what's in harmony with order, what's out of harmony with order, what your function in creation is, who you need to connect with, who you need to repel, how you need to interact with other Afuraitkaitnut individuals, how you need to eradicate your enemies. All those different things are powered by that divine living energy moving throughout your system. the little ba bird that you direct, the Bayat bird that you direct, and that energy fuses with your consciousness, your ka or your kayat. The divine living energy of Ra and Raet, a portion of that is within us as the Ba and Bayat. So when they talk about Ra cries, or the tears from the eye of Ra created the human beings, the original human beings, of course, the tears from the eye of Ra, not just the sun itself or the Atena Atenit, but from the Arit Ra, or the eye of Ra, or Raet, gives birth to the original. We did a broadcast called Oniba, the creation of the human being, where we went into detail about that whole cosmic process, where they're talking about drops of sunlight coming down from the sun and manifesting as human beings and so forth. What they're talking about is the drops of energy from the divine living energy of Ra and Raet, that divine fire that animates all of creation. A portion of that divine fire is dwelling within us. That's the divine living fire. That's why it's a bowl of burning incense, that divine living fire, that sweet, quote-unquote, fire that's animate by the wings of the bird. You have a fire, but then the flames of the fire are fanned by the wings of the bird, by the lungs. Just like you have blood and sending blood to every cell in the body, and because the fire is in the blood, it's sending fire to every cell in the body, but it has to move through the lungs to become oxygenated or purified. So the fan flames by the lungs, purifying the blood, purifying that fire so it can be sent to every cell in your body so they can be oxygenated so you can continue to function in harmony with order. And on an energetic level, when you're functioning in a purified fashion, then you can have clear channels of communication with other Afuraitkaitnut people who are functioning in a purified fashion as well as plant life, animal life, and mineral life. And therefore, you have clear channels of communication with animal totems as well as the divinities and ancestors and so forth. So all of that is connected. So when they talk about Raet creating or Ra creating human beings through his eye or him crying or the tears of Ra becoming human beings, when they say the eye of Ra, or my eye cried and humanity came into being, Ari, that's an English translation. They'll say, well, Ra cried and the tears came from his eye and human beings came into existence. But instead of using that English translation, tears came from his eye, Ra, the original Arit Ra, or the maker or doer of the energy of Ra, is Raet, meaning we are birthed from Raet. This is why all across Afuraikai, wherever we exist in the world, black people, you'll find that Ra and Raet, called Da and Aido Hwedo and Vodoun, they're called Odumare and Oshumare in the Yoruba tradition, called Nyankonton and Nyankopon and Akan. They're the Creatress. They're manifest as the rainbow serpent, circular serpent swallowing its tail. They represent the collective ancestry of all Afuraitkaitnut people. You'll find those attributes all across the continent. The Creator and Creatress, Ra and Raet. You'll see them as the rainbow serpent in ancient Kemet. You'll see them as the rainbow serpent swallowing their tails in the Yoruba tradition as Oshumare. You'll see them as Dan Aido Hwedo and Bambara Hwedo and Aido Hwedo and Vodoun in the West. You'll see Nyankonton and Nyankopon. This is why Nyankonton generally means Nyankonton, or Nyankonton means the arched tone, Nanka or serpent. Nyankopon is the great circular pone, serpent, Nanka. These are titles of Ra and Raet and Akan. The titles of Ra and Raet, Mare, Oshumare, or Edumare, Eshumare in the Yoruba tradition, Dan Aido Hwedo and Vodoun and so forth, Ra and Raet in ancient Kemet. The Creator and Creatress, the rainbow serpent swallowing its tail, the collective ancestry of all Afuraitkaitnut people. Ancestry, we are directly descendant of Ra and Raet, meaning their Ba and their Bayat, their divine living energy. They've given a portion of that to us. They've sent a miniature divinity, a little Ba bird to take up residence within the male, a Baet bird to take up residence in the female, and you can direct that divine living energy throughout your system. We're directly descendant of them. We have Rait and Ra within us. It does not mean that originally Ra and Ra was a male and female, and they were great king and queen mother, and when they died, people began to venerate them as the great ancestors, and later they became deities. That's pure stupidity, that foolishness from white anthropologists, pretending as though the Supreme Being originally simply was the great ancestor, and our people just anthropomorphized our ancestresses and ancestors and made them deities. That is pure idiocy. So when you hear fools talking like that, you know they're aping the whites and their offspring, and they have no capacity to communicate with the divinities themselves, because if they did, they wouldn't be talking that nonsense. Very often, pseudo-scholars, pseudo-linguists, and others, pseudo-ethnographers, believing that the whites and their offspring have the keys to our ancestral traditions, they repeat that nonsense. And you have that filtering into various traditions. The Yoruba tradition, Akan tradition, Bakongo tradition, Chiluba or Baluba tradition, Bakongo, different people who've been infected by the whites and their offspring, and they begin to repeat that foolishness. But in reality, we know exactly who Ra and Raet are, the Creator and Creatress. They were not human beings who became deities. They're the ones who created the various stars, suns, moons, planets, and so forth. They weren't, but we're directly descendant of them because they placed a portion of their divine living energy that is golden light, that Ba and Bayat force within us. We have a direct energetic link to them because they created all of the forces in nature that animate the planets, suns, moons, stars, atmospheres, mountains, oceans, rivers, and so forth. And they all have Ba energy and Bayat energy as well. Then we have an energetic link to all of the forces in nature, to our ancestors and ancestors, all plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaitnut human life, and Afuraitkaitnut human life only. Because the whites and their offspring have no capacity to draw in the energy of Ra and Raet. They do not have a Ba and Bayat. They have residual electromagnetic energy, no different than the electromagnetic energy moving through a stone or piece of plastic. It's by virtue of the fact that there are, the earth is surrounded by the magnetosphere. Everything is contained within that. But the whites and their offspring have no capacity to become possessed by the NANASOM, the Orishas of Voodoo, are in fact repelled by them, like two magnets repelling each other on a table. The deities do not possess the white. They never have and never will. The ancestors and ancestors, of course, of Afuraitkaitnut have never possessed the white offspring, and they never will. So they have no capacity to align with the force of nature, of planet life, the suns, moons, stars, oceans, rivers, all things around them. They have no capacity to draw that energy within themselves because they are repulsive to that kind of energy. They have no capacity to align with the consciousness of the Supreme Being because they do not have a Ka or a Kayat. And we go into detail about that in our book, The Okra Complex, the Soul of AKANFO, showing the difference, not only physiologically between us and the whites and their offspring, but also spiritually. You have spiritual anatomy. They do not have a Ka or Kayat, a soul of divine consciousness. They do not have a Ba, created entities being created with a capital C, naturally created. Plants, like mineral life, are naturally created. Naturally created. The white minerals are not naturally created. They're not created by sanction. Any the cocoa plant is a naturally created entity. Turn the cocoa plant into cocaine. Now you have a crack cocaine. It exists not created out of bed. It's not directed to be manufactured under the sanction of the Supreme Being. So it's not a divinely created or divinely inspired creation. It's something that was made through disorder. So it's a corrupt entity with no life, without any divine living energy. The same is true of the whites and their offspring. They're not created by the Supreme. They have degenerated. A small percentage of our people becoming cancerous, just like a small percentage of your cells become cancerous discordant, going against the other cells. And the only response in the body to deal with cancerous cells is to isolate them and kill them and expel them from the body. The white offspring are the cancerous cells within the body of Black humanity. They separated because of a disconnection from the Ka and Ka'at, because of their own behavior. The spirits of disorder repelling that primordial Ka and Ka'at, which they no longer have, and they continue to incarnate as spirits of disorder until we make them stand. So that's the difference between us, and of course we go into detail about that in the Okra complex, the soul of AKANFO. So those are the things we wanted to deal with in this specific broadcast. If you have any questions on the phone line, hit the number 1. You can hit us up with some questions in the chat room. If you have any questions or comments in the chat room, we're going to be mentioned earlier about our conference that we just had on March 12th. Ancestral Religious Reversion. That was our 2nd annual conference. We're having our second, and that was the 2nd annual Echisan Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference. We have 3 conferences per year. Hoodoo Nation Festival in October, where we deal with the Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, which is what Hoodoo is. In March, around the spring equinox, we have Echisan Ancestral Religious Reversion. We bring together different traditions, Hoodoo, which is Akan, Juju, Yoruba, Voodoo, which is Vodoun, Wanga, which is Ovambo, the various traditions born of our blood circles right here in North America. The traditions we have maintained that have been fossilized in our blood, within our bones, since we were forced into the Western Hemisphere during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. We maintained those ancestral religious traditions for hundreds of years, and because we relied on those traditions, we were able to align our consciousness and the empowerment to wage war against the whites and their offspring and force them into enslavement. We were not on an island, so we had a different approach. We couldn't simply organize in a smaller area and overthrow the whites and their offspring as they did in Haiti and take over the island. We were on a continent and are on a continent. So we had a different charge. We had to operate in a different fashion. We had to force the end of the institution up. And through waging war against the whites and our offspring, we forced the end of that institution, that perverse institution of enslavement, because we were living in harmony with order. Being directed such as Okumfo Yao, Nat Turner, Okumfo Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, Nana Abena Araminta, Harriet Tubman, leading our people to civil war. And then our people war in that process as well, forcing the end of enslavement. So that Echisan Religious Reversion Conference dealing with that kind of information. And then the 3rd annual conference, or 3rd conference of the year, is Ojiraman, the Purified Nation. We deal with nationism, the purification of nationalism. So that's coming up on June 24th. We put the information, the trailer out for that on June 24th. You can see some of that information on the website, Ojiraman Afashe. On the website, you can see the trailer. We have a flyer. We're going to continue to check that because we're going to be adding the different presenters that will be. We'll have about 3 presenters, either 3 or 4 presenters. We're going to be adding that information, so continue to check that information out. We also have our Ojiraman Afashe book that we will be releasing on the day of the event. If you would like to place your business, organization, or institution ad in the book, you can do so. When you look on the Ojiraman Afashe page, you'll see that information. And so 1/4 page ad is $25, a half page ad is $35, a full page ad is $50. It's an 8.5 by 11 full color book. So, and we always give away a free copy to everyone who attends the event. And we also make the ebook version free, which is on our website permanently. We've had over 3 million hits on our website over the past 12-month period. So when we place those journals on the website, it's free downloads, which will be a permanent free download. Various people come to the website throughout. From now on, will come and see your information. So a $25 ad or a $35 or $50 ad will pay for itself immediately as soon as one person makes a purchase because they saw your ad in our journal by coming to the website and getting the free book. That'll pay for itself, and everything after that will be profit for you. And of course, you'll expand your customer base and so forth, and your network. Okay, we're going to go to the phone lines real quick. Michelle on the phone line. 744, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, Michelle Kwesi.
What's up?
I'm calling about tonight's topic of the correlation of, say that now you've always been into the circle, but now you're studying more about your ancestral connection or your ancestral clan, regarding your matrilineal clans or your bushafo. All right, now you're going into this and you find out that you're married or you have a child with a person that is from the same clan. You're born in the same clan. I know that's like similar to incest, but how do you restore order? And being that we're going through this time as far as chronological period with influence of all the deities and also, our spiritual warriors and warrioresses, of dealing with restoration during this particular time of the so-called time of Pisces, of dealing with the Vodoun of going through restoration. How do people restore that order?
Okay, so you're saying, and you're talking about specifically natural clan succession, and as we talked about, 7 major clans in Akan tradition, and people do not marry. It's not an endogamous piece where you marry within the same matriclan, because those are like brothers and sisters. So you're saying, what if you find out that the person that you connected with happened to be part of the same clan?
Yes. Because a lot of people right now, they're getting, they think that having a stable, some people get into relationship thinking that, all right, yeah, I could get, me being mature or me being grown or being an adult is handling 2 or 3 relationships at one time, and they're not even studying themselves or studying the person that they're partnering up with. But all right, now you stop being immature, and you grow out of that adolescent phase, and you find to come into more realizing self about being harmonious, and there may be tumultuous things happen in your relationship, and you discover that, I married somebody that's from the same clan, or I had a child with somebody from the same clan, male or female.
Right. So this is what we typically would do. First, you want, of course, the way you find out what is through, of course, people can do things like genealogy and things like that, but the way you find out specifically what clan you're from is dealing directly with the ancestresses and ancestors of your direct blood circle, because they are from the clan and they know who's who and what's what and so forth. A couple of things happen. On one hand, if someone truly is, and because they need to confirm who they truly are, who they actually are, not just somebody telling them they went and got divination and somebody told them they're from the specific clan. It doesn't matter what somebody says in a quote-unquote divination. You need to confirm it with your own people. Whether you went and got divination or not, you need to confirm with your own people through your own direct ritual practice exactly who you are, notwithstanding what anybody else says, and it doesn't matter what their title of priest or priestess, that means absolutely nothing. You find out who you are from your own people, through your own ritual practice. That's our responsibility. That's our obligation as adults. So, first you find out truly if it's actually really have taken place. Are you really of the same clan? A couple of things can happen. Number one, if it's really that way, then typically what will happen is there will be a fracturing or a fissure. You know what I'm saying? That problems will take place, or they would have been taking place at some point anyway, even before you found out. you'll find that there's, some friction there, some tension there. There's not harmony there. However, what often happens is people may, for example, in Akan, 7 major clans, but there are also, what you'll find, there are different names and subgroups of different clans, different major clans within their subdivisions and so forth. And some people are part of different subdivisions, so you have to find out exactly who you are to see if you're really from the exact same clan if you're not. If you really are, you'll find typically that what's going to take place is that natural separation anyway. Now, even within our regular relationships, even when we're not part of the same clan, as people know, over 50% of all marriages end up in divorce within the first 7 to 10 years and so forth. We're not doing very well with relationships anyway, so the vast majority of our relationships don't work out in the first place. But even when we begin to get on track and start focusing on relationships that's rooted in divine order, when we have that focus, we'll start being drawn to the people who we need to be connected with, and we'll pulled away from the people we don't need to be connected with. And that's with the individuals are engaged in ancestral religious practice, or if just one is, you find out directly from your own ka, your kaet function is, how you should be operating, and you operate based on that. And your Nsamanfo will let you know exactly who you are, what clan you're from, and so forth. If you're really from the same clan, there's going to be some kind of, some kind of separation, some kind of repulsion, because it's not something that's in harmony with order. Now, very often, that's what has taken place with many of our relationships. Not always, but sometimes the reason why people's relationships don't work out is they're never supposed to be together based on that clan affiliation in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I want to add on to it. I would like to ask part 2 of that question. All right, are there any prayers that we could do, we could do with our Nukamare, where we could go to our ancestral sign and we could pray similar to, if you have any addiction, like to make sure that there's a harmonious transition from that type of tumultuous relationship, so that you do sever that tie, and that your family structure, as far as your relationship, say if you do happen to have children, are still intact. I mean, that's still on point, that you still be able to teach your child the culture in which you came from, that you left that situation in a harmonious way. Even though you entered into a tumultuous relationship, you left the relationship in a harmonious way. Is there a ritual that could be done, like a communication? I know that you just dealing with your Oshum and just dealing with the dailies, just constantly just asking for affirmation, ask for soothing and guidance, but is there a prayer, a song, or a dance that could be done that you are aware of that could be shared with us?
Well, when you look at the Okra Complex book and you look in the back, and it has the Akra Guade, soul washing ritual practice, and we talk about that.
Yes.
That process. Now, you do Akra Guade, you're cleansing your head, cleansing your soul, and so forth, but using the water to cleanse your head and so forth on specific days, especially your Krada, your soul day, on a regular basis, and of course, yearly on Krada, your birthday, but also every, at least every 6 weeks or whatever. But part of that process, even just with a regular divorce, that kind of ritual process takes place. Because when someone gets married, for example, a male and female get married, once they get married, then the female comes under the protection of the patriclan divinity that governs the male, because they have children, and the sperm cell of the male carries the energy of the patriclan deity, like the ovum cell of the female carries the energy of the matriclan divinity. So you have a matriclan divinity, a patriclan divinity, just like you have DNA from your father, but they combine and they generate a new being, which is you, because you're not your mother, you're not your father. You have something from both of them, but you have your own independence and identity. You have a patriclan divinity that's been protecting the father's side for thousands of years, the matriclan divinity who's been protecting the mother's side for thousands of years, and then you have the deity that governs your head, your crown, which is your unique divinity yourself. But when the male and female get together, and they have children, of course, the sperm cell of the male carries that patriclan energy into the womb, so the children are under protection of the patriclan divinity. And so, because they are united, so is the mother as well. She's under the protection of that patriclan divinity of the father while they're married. But if they separate, then there's a separation because she's no longer married to the male. She's no longer connected to that patriclan deity of his that he brought into the relationship because they're no longer together. She goes back under the protection of the patriclan divinity that was connected to her father. Of course, he maintains his, and part of that severing process with a divorce is dealing with your patriclan divinity in that soul washing ceremony. That's just a regular divorce, but it's the same thing even with regard to the kind of relationship you're talking about. If you connect with somebody, had children with somebody, and so forth, something does not work out. It's still you're going through that process of extracting yourself, but then, of course, cleansing your head in connection with that patriclan divinity of yours. So you get clean separation. And cleansing the head in that ritual practice, that's one of the things that helps sever that energy connection. Sometimes people they've been engaged physically with somebody for a while, and even if they leave them alone for a number of months, they still have that energy connection to them physically. And some people think it takes a year or, 90 days or 180 days or a year, just depends. You can sit back and wait for the energy to begin to dissipate, but that's a case-by-case basis. Some people dissipate within 90 days greatly, some people a year and so forth. But when you engage that cleansing process with the patriclan divinity, that's when you make that clear severing, and you can extract yourself much easier and much more clean than just waiting for the energy to begin to dissipate between you and the person you were previously engaged with. So it's the soul washing ceremony, whether it's in Akan, Afurakanu soul washing, Yoruba tradition, cleansing the Ori, but also in connection with the patriclan Orisha. And in Akan, cleanse the soul and so forth. You're going to the river of the divinity that governs the patriclan or patrilineage or patricirculage. If we don't have in connection with that particular river, we go to a body of water and invoke that divinity in that body of water. If you're in the home and you have a vessel of water, then you invoke that patriclan divinity, so you can use the patriclan divinity's energy once invoked and infused within that water to cleanse your head and so forth, to cleanse your cry or read. So every tradition has their own names for in the head, but you're in this particular sense, you're dealing with that patriclan divinity to help, sever those ties.
And may I say for that, is that in relation also? Is that also the relationship with that boat of Ra, of purification, of cleansing the self, or restoring self, or reincarnating, or returning self when you are doing Ra?
You said, is it in connection with, did you say the boat of Ra?
Yes. When you dealing with purification or just cleansing self or just, dealing with Ra, just not only when you do it on the day of you doing your rituals, your nokumare, but I'm saying just right now, since you are, dealing with that ritual of you're saying of cleansing your soul, washing your soul through your patriclan, is that also in connection with that scene or that influence or that that ritual.
Right. So you talk, yeah. So when we talk about that regular self-purification, ahojira, self-purification, yes, it's in connection with that. The only difference is what you're doing, that you should be cleansing our hair on a consistent basis, like in our Akan tradition, like every krada, every soul day on a smaller level, doing that. Then sometimes you, on a greater level, you go to a river and do it, and so forth. At least once a year, going to a river to do it. But even inside the home, every krada, having that vessel of water at the shrine for your kradin bosom, for your cross, to cleanse your head. So that's part of the process. The only difference is giving that offering to that patriclan divinity, and the focus is not just cleansing your hair like normal, but the focus is invoking that divinity to help utilize energy and connection with the individual that you were previously connected with. So it's a similar process, it's just a little bit more nuanced towards a specific issue.
NANASOM.
Okay, I'll say that. We appreciate the call. And we also want to make an announcement for some of the newer people. Number one, the entire broadcast, just like all of our 270 plus broadcasts, are available on Blog Radio, our channel, and then we upload the broadcast as well to our YouTube channel. So we'll be uploading this broadcast to the YouTube channel as well. For those who are new to some of the information, we are working on our Amarukafo Adebisa Ajumadi African American Ancestral Divination Project, which is a documentary film. We have a couple of things going. We have the crowdfunding campaign for that. We were going to begin filming last month, but we had somewhat of a setback. We put a video out about that. As far as the funding, we had a tax offset for the tax refund, student loan offset, and so forth. So that pushed us back. So we have to recover from that. Once we get to like the 20% mark of the funding, the filming. We plan to have the film done by June, prior to the Ojiraman and Fashe conference in June. We're still on track for that. We just have to move quicker. We're at about 11% of the funding goal right now. We need to get to that 20%. We've had about 63 people in the past 70 days who made a contribution. So if you go to our Amarukapo Adebisa Ajumadi, our fundraising, crowdfunding campaign, you can see the 9-minute trailer for the movie talking about ancestral divination practices that we've maintained in our blood circles here in North America: Hoodoo, Juju, Vodoun, Ngengang. We will have Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau out of New Orleans in the film. Rekit Kajara Nia Nevihet, she's in the film, the founderess of Ra Seki, Kemetic Reiki. We have Mama Mawusi Ashakir, who's talking about Juju, divinatory practices in Juju, the Yoruba tradition in North America. She's the founderess of the Body Temple Institute. And we also have Wabet Seshat Tut Ankh Wajet. She's the founderess of Wachet Ankh, Wachet Yoga. But she also has that divinatory practice maintained in her Ovambo Gullah ancestry, palm leaf divination, coming from the Ovambo Gullah Geechee ancestry. She'll be dealing with that. And of course, we will be dealing with that Akan divination, Wabo Jira Adebisa, that we preserved here in North America, that we use in our Koma and Amarokai Tifimu, the Akomo Nation in North America. So all 5 of us will be in the film. We're working on trying to get everything together, but we do need assistance for that because of that offset. We lost over $3,000 in that offset. That would have placed us in the position to begin filming on location. We'll be going to every different city, to the seats of these various shrines, the seats of Hoodoo and Voodoo and Juju in these various different parts of the country to film on location. So that's what we need the funds for, as well as the software and so forth, for the editing and everything for professionally done film. So we can begin screening the film in different cities and different states. And also we already have interest in Canada and some other places to screen the film once it's complete. So we're trying to move forward to recover what we lost in that tax offset. So if you have not seen the trailer yet, the 9-minute trailer for the film, we'll put the link in the chat room. You'll see it on our Homa page. We posted it on Facebook and so forth. NDRAZR _ADBISA. You'll see it on our Facebook page, our different pages on our website, and so forth. And we also, today, we posted on our publications page. We have a special sale, and this is part of that whole process, trying to get to that point of the 20% funding, level to get the film started. Special sale for our Blog Talk. We have 25 books. The entire 25 book set on sale for $125. So $125 for the entire 25. That includes shipping. So it's basically really $116 plus the $9 shipping. So $125 for 25 books. The whole set, special Blog Talk listeners. So when you go to our Nhoma page, our publications page on the website, you will see that we have a special button that we just added today. The special Blog Talk Radio listener sale, entire 25 book set for $125. That includes the shipping. If you have never taken, advantage of our publications, please do so. We also have other discounts. For example, the first 5 books. For the first books, the first 10 books for $66, and of course, books range from $8 to $11. So if you bought 1 book, or 2 or 5, or the whole set for $125, that will assist us in raising the funds so we can get this film completed, so we can get it out to you, to the community, so we can get some real information out here about true story information, as well as ancestral religious practice, divination, and the fact that we have our ancestral religious traditions intact right here in North America. We're not dependent on going outside of our blood circles for initiations, not dependent on going to the continent, going to the Caribbean, going anywhere for our ancestral religious practice. We have maintained that within our blood circles intergenerationally and transcarnationally for hundreds of years right here in North America. This is what the film will be dealing with, as well as true historical information, cosmological information, the kind of thing and examine here on the broadcast. So you can go to that the website for the film, as well as the PayPal button for the special on our Nhoma page, publications page. And we're going to go back to the phone line. Meet Chiawo on the phone line, number 3635. You had a question or comment? Number 3635.
Oh, yes. That's me. I'm sorry. This is my first time, Quaid. How you doing? I'm sorry.
No problem.
This is Kim. Yes, I have a couple of questions. One was, I noticed you said you had about your broadcast, and I had left you a comment saying that I could probably help you out with the computer and the software. I don't know what y'all are using, but I gave you iMac and I forgot the software name. The software name.
I think you sent a message saying you can help out on the that particular software. So we're going to look at once we finish the filming process or get into the filming process, we're going to decide which is the best software for that kind of filming. But it may be what you have. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just anytime you need me. I drive a lot, but I'm always on the road. So right now I'm driving. So I've been kind of confused trying to come online tonight, but I really love everything that I've heard from you, and it's been like a blessing to me because it's kind of like has like here's something different in my life. So yeah, all of the different names though, I got to get used to all of these different names that's coming along with the Kayet and the Kai. I'm good with what you're saying about the Kai and the Kayet and the Ra and the Raet, and but I'm learning. So it gets kind of confusing for me when I guess you go into the Akan language and you speak and you have the different deities, but they're the same deities but with different names.
Right.
So like I be trying to figure out like who is. I think it's Oshan and Ogan and Ogu or Legbo or in the Voodoo and the Iwi. Might not be pronouncing it right, but you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
Yes. In fact, that one of the publications, and you'll see this on the website. It's in the book, but we also have the chart on the website. The Afurakanu bosom of the deities governing the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week. We have a chart of comparisons between Akan and Yoruba and Vodoun and Igbo and the language of ancient Kemet, so you can see who's who. I understand what you're saying. That's one of the reasons why we not only we put the publications out, but we do the broadcast so we can clear up some of those things and get some more detailed information so people can see it, but then they can also hear it, and then people can go back to the broadcast and replay it. But we do have a chart. One of the Afurakanu bosom book in volume 1 is in that one, and it's on the website, the Afurakanu bosom page.
Okay. I know I just ordered a couple of books here probably a couple of weeks ago. But I was wanting to try to order when I hear you talk about the wholesale books. But when I go online I can never find how to actually get it in the wholesale price. Like they're all like separate prices. So I was trying to figure that one out.
Okay, actually, it's on the same page, but it's all the way near the bottom. So the regular page with the books, the Nhoma page with all the book covers on there. When you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the distributor information document, and then you'll see the buttons for the wholesale prices for distributors. But you'll keep scrolling, and you'll run right into that.
Okay. See, let me see if I had another question for you before I let you go. I did kind of have a question about altar building and how do you actually go into honoring the deities or worshiping with the deities? Like, do you just start off with your own ancestors or you just, climb the ladder or?
Right. So,
and I do
in
have
fact,
a time too, so I've been kind of reading those.
Okay. So, yeah, in fact, I'll send me an email. I'll send you a link. We did a specific broadcast talking about, it's called Nkomre, Ancestral Shrine, Communication, and Liberation. And it's talking about a basic, it's talking about what an ancestral is, what the function is, how to set up an ancestral shrine. And we're discussing specific documents that we wrote on that, and we have links to them. And it also includes a specific ritual prayer, and you can hear the audio for that as well. So you can, hear what it sounds like, and the prayer written out in English as well as the translation. So there's a specific broadcast where we have that. We go into detail about it, and then we have the links to the different articles and so forth, including the prayer. So I'll send you a link to that specific broadcast. And that's kind of like a step-by-step, starting off dealing with your ancestors and ancestors. So I can send you a link to that. Okay.
All right, I'll do that. But I just want to say I appreciate everything, and I thank you. And that's all I got.
Okay, Medase, we appreciate you. Appreciate your support.
Okay.
Okay, and we have one more call on the phone line. phone line number 8540. You had a question or comment? Number 8540 on the phone line.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just listening in. I had pressed the one earlier when you was doing a sound check.
Okay, no problem.
I kind of have some questions, but I might just reserve it for another time.
Okay, just let me know, or you can send me an email as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay then. What's up? Okay, we're gonna get back one more call on the phone line. Michelle on the phone line number 2204. You got a question or a comment?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, 2274. Oh, I'm sorry, 2204.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't really hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Okay. I had you on Bluetooth. Sorry. All right. So I want to ask. All right. So for a person just coming into this information, right? So how do I find out who I am and what clan I belong to? If I don't know if I'm asking that right.
Right. So what we know is and we have with regards to the publications that we have all of the ebook versions of books, the 25 books that we have out. The ebook versions are all free downloads. So if people don't have funds, they can go to the website and download the free books. So the way we have them arranged, starting from the very beginning. So the first book is Kuku Ancestral Jurisdiction, and it goes into detail about the cosmology of creation, Amenet and Ra and Raet and Akan. Much of the information we were talking about tonight, origin of the term Afuraitkaitnut, also talking about our true story, how these various characters, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, and all these other characters are manufactured fictional characters who never existed. So we go into detail about the Commonwealth of creation and our true story there. The next publication is Ubin Shang, dealing with the ritual practices in our culture and what their functionality is. When you see people engage in ritual song, ritual dance, ritual prayer, meditation, or pouring libation, what the functional apparatus is. Nothing we do is symbolic. We're receiving, processing specific, measurable, quantifiable facts. So we show what these ritual practices are for. And then we have Afuraitkaitnut, the origin of the masculine, Amenet Chi, divine law, love, and divine hating. We have the Okra complex, talking about the nature of the soul. So you're studying that kind of information, you start getting grounded in reality, grounded in the cosmology of creation. And then that next piece that we talked about, with the sister asked about, and I said it was in the link, it's on our YouTube page, Oshumare and Odumare, and I can send you the same link as well. But that's talking about establishing just a basic ancestor shrine, something very simple where you can sit down and communicate with your people, your great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers, and so forth, your ancestors of good character, so they can show you exactly who you are. They've probably already done so in different ways and put you in front of people who are from your specific clan or directed you to information that has given you that, but they'll continuously give you confirmation so you know for certain. You won't just be out there wondering. They'll continuously confirm it in various different ways over time, numerous times, multiple times, so you can be 100% accurate. So we always have people start off, for example, with those first 5 publications, just to get grounded in cosmology and culture and true story and spirituality, and repel the misinformation we've been given so many different ways, and then go into the true practice. And it's not like you have to memorize every single, line in the book and so forth, just to be familiar with that structure, and then moving forward with the ritual practice. So when you look on my page, the publications page on the website, you'll see that those publications there, you'll see it says cover books, but also the ebook versions are free. Just remember that. But then we have the softcover version as well. But they're arranged in order from the beginning. And second one is Uben Shang. Third one is Afuraitkaitnut, the origin of the term Africa. The fourth one is Amenet, divine law, love, and divine hate. So you'll see that each one builds upon the next, and it's structured that way purposely. And that way you have a step-by-step approach.
Okay, now I read the Cuckoo, the name of it. Cuckoo Tum Tum.
Right.
And now I'm on the Mase. So I was because I have a friend of mine who's been enlightening me on it, and he's been I've been blessed enough to get the publications from him. So the second, the Mate, he's telling me about define my symbol and stuff like that. So this is where it gets a little complex for me. So I was just wondering. I wanted a clear outline of exactly how to navigate through it.
Right. So now the Mate that's a specific text. What we did with that text is before I go forward, just to let people know, there are 90 seconds left of the broadcast. If you want to listen beyond 11:30, you must call in, and we won't go too much longer beyond 11:30, but you have to call in within 90 seconds, or else you'll be cut off. Only the people who are on the phone line can hear after this 90 seconds is up. So call-in number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You have about a minute to call in, 657-383-0635, because in a minute, then only the people on the phone line will be able to hear. Everybody else will be cut off. But Mate is a specific book dealing with Dr. Bobby E. Wright, his thoughts and formulations, and then we just showed a comparison between the things he was teaching and the Akan tradition and specific Adinkra symbols representing ethical existence. So that was a specific work, a particularized work, and that's something, that's a quick read that you can go through. But when you go to the Unhoma page, the publications page, you'll see the actual curriculum. We have it on the publications page, as well as we have a separate page called NANASOM Fake Hood. The Fake Hood page was a NANASOM study groups page, and it still has the same arrangement of the books in order. So Kuku Tum Tum is first, but then Uben Shang, the Ancestral Summons, is second. So when you go to the publications page, the book page, you'll see the actual Mate Mate is way further down. That's like maybe number 15 or something, and that's more of a specialized work. It gives some insight onto different things, but it's not essential. The essential ones are the first Kuku Tum Tum, Uben Shang, Afuraitkaitnut, Maranchi, and Okra complex. Those things are the essential ones that gets people, grounded, and then moving forward in an informed way with regard to ancestral religious practice. So you'll see that on the publications page. And if you send me an email, I can send you a direct link as well.
Okay, and I can send you an email to. You have your email address here in one of these either of the publications.
Yes, so you can go to ojidafo.com and you'll see a link to the email there.
Okay, I see.
As well as we're on Facebook as well. Kwesi Akan on Facebook. You can send me an email there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. That's all. Okay, and there's another call on the phone line. Michelle on the phone line, number 5532. You had a question or comment? Five 5532.
Machia Majo Kwesi.
What's up?
Hey, I got two questions. I am gonna make it kind of quick because I know I want to prolong it. Question number one is about Nana Baluku. I've been doing research about the Supreme Being, the nature of Supreme Being. It came across the divinity Nana Baluku, who said give birth to Mawu and Lisa. So I wanted to get more specific information about that divinity to find out, is that divinity a term as like we say Supreme Being, you know, and then that's the Great Mother and Great Father. They comprise the Supreme Being, comprise together they're the Supreme Being. So is that the same thing with Nana Baluku, or is Nana Baluku a particular divinity? Because that was kind of confusing. I don't know if it's the way they wrote it, and you know.
Right. So what
are
you
you
have
familiar
is,
with that divinity?
Yes. So that's in, on one hand it's in Vodoun, but then you'll also have Nanan or Nanaburuku and that's spelled with an R instead of an L in the Yoruba tradition. And there was some connection between people in Dahomey and Yoruba as well. But then you also have the Guan speaking people talking about Burukun in the Guan tradition in Ghana. So what you'll find is there are different accounts of who Nana Buruku is. In certain accounts, they'll say Nana Buruku is a great mother divinity. In certain other accounts, they'll say Nana Buruku is the mother of Mawu and Lisa. In reality, Nana Buruku is Nanet, as who we were talking about. So you have Nun and Nunet. Nana Buruku is Nunet in reality. And that's why you have her in the Yoruba tradition. She's one of the Orisha, but she's not the mother of all the Orisha. She's not the Supreme Being, but she's one of the divinities. In certain expressions of the own tradition, about Nana Buruku being one of the Vodoun. Then you have other people saying that Nana Buruku is the great mother. She gave birth to Mawu and Lisa. But in reality, Nana Buruku is Nanet or Nunet. And then, of course, Nun and Nunet are the primordial. When they talk about Buruku, sometimes they'll talk about Buruku meaning dark or bad or something like that. Sometimes they'll give it a negative connotation, or they'll talk about witchcraft or something like that. But what they're talking about is the dark magnetic energy. That's the energy, the wave energy of, on her side, Nanet or Nunet, in the black substance of space, that foundational primordial energy from which Ra and Raet, the Creator and Creatress, rises out of. In Vodoun, that would be Aido Hwedo, rising up out of that primordial energy from which all things derive their power. So Nana Baluku is really Nanet, we were talking about earlier.
Okay. So could it be possible that some part of it is different writers who are kind of infected, putting stuff together like that?
Right. That's why you have very expressions. Sometimes it'll be the different writers, but then sometimes it will be the people themselves, because recall these writers are typically white ethnographers who are recording information over the past 200 years. So, for example, in the Akan tradition with Vodoun and so forth, by the time the Christians and Muslims get there and begin to corrupt the tradition, in Akan tradition, they'll start saying foolish things like Nyame is a monotheistic Akan god, and Nyankonton is just the name of Nyame, and Obode is just the name of Nyame, and all these different names are just names. And actually, they're different deities. Nyame is Amen, Nyankonton is Ra, Odumankoma is Atem, Obode is Pata, and Tete Kwaframua is Kumwimu, and so forth. So, so these are different deities who are subordinate to Nyame or Amen. Because of the influence of Christianity and Islam, they try to fuse all these deities into just different titles of the one monotheistic God, which is foolishness. And many of them don't even know that Nyamewa exists. For example, some Ghanaian just recently sent a message asking about why are you talking about Nyamewa, because Nyamewa doesn't exist in the Akan language. And anybody who just does a cursory examination can find Nyamewa in the Akan language, but don't look because it's been taught recently that Nyame is the great God and he's the same God in the Bible. And Jesus is the son of Nyame. So that kind of nonsense has infected the culture. Same thing has happened with the Yoruba tradition. They'll try to fuse together Olodumare and Olorun, saying they're the same deity or they're just different names of the same entity, or Olodumare is the supreme being, which is totally inaccurate. And they've done the same thing with even Mawu, to the point where they start calling Mawu he, like he's the great God and he created the world, he. And of course, Mawu is the great mother, Lisa is the great father. And you'll find Lisa being the great father in Vodoun. If you look in central Afuraitkaitnut, you'll find Lisa being the great father. In the Igbo, you'll find one of the titles of Chukwu, the great god. On the male side is Olisa. So, Mawu and Lisa have been the great mother and great father all along. So yes, you'll have, on one hand, you'll have white ethnographers trying to force that misinformation or just misinforming. But then you have people who have been infected over the past couple of 100 years since Christianity came, and they're misrepresenting their own cosmology. Read that, because it's not that much really written about these traditions. A handful of books, a handful of, quote-unquote researchers don't understand the culture. Typically, it's not written by somebody who's engaged in ancestral religious practice. If it is, it's written by very often somebody who's been engaged in ancestral religious practice as infected by Christianity, Islam, and white culture in general. Mm-hmm. So they're giving a presentation of the culture that's infected. When we left the continent over 300 years ago, many of us, the manner in which the tradition was being practiced then, prior to, these infections, that's what we brought to North America. That's the culture that we passed down in our blood circles. So we're naturally drawn to look for the great mother and the great father, the various different divinities, the ancestresses and the ancestors. We didn't bring an infected culture over here. So, yeah, that's what's taking place.
Okay. And the other question I had, it's kind of simple, but at the same time, I find it kind of complicated to express to people, and that's how to answer a question when it come across individuals that's like really drawn into the whole extraterrestrial thing. When I see it as something that the whites and the offspring just throw out there to keep us distracted from what's really going on here on Earth, and to keep the natural humans from carrying out their natural function on the Earth, as well as evoking their ancestors and attuning with the different divinities that govern creation, that govern nature. So when you go out here, when I come out here and see different people throughout the city of Chicago, and some of them, look at YouTube constantly, and they may use YouTube, movies, the news, and the Bible as their resources, which is totally not good resources to be your main resources for grabbing information. And they would neglect, going to the Combre, the altar, shrine, and, evoking their ancestors or listening to the guidance from their soul. And for some reason, I come to know different things from the ancestors about life and about creation throughout the earth, as well as throughout the universe, being things that function in a synchronicity that's sanctioned by the Supreme Being, Great Mother and Father, Amenet, Nyamewa Nyame. But for some reason, when some people come and say, hey, I've been looking at YouTube, and what about the Anunnaki? What about the pyramids being portals for outer space? And they're here, and they ask the question, do you think there's other life out there? How would you really answer those questions for those people like that who aren't in the culture, but how would you bridge that? As far as you, Quasi, how would you bridge that?
This is one of the reasons we put all 25 books out there for free, as well as, all the different broadcasts, 170 plus broadcasts out, because there's so much misinformation out there. So we have to combat that misinformation with accurate information. They've been introduced to foolishness, and they can't prove any of it because it's inaccurate. All they can do is believe in it, and that's all they're doing. They know that's what they're doing. So you don't even have to really entertain it. You're like, okay, what you're saying is 100% false. Of course, you can't prove that because you're just believing in it. If you want some real information, here's some real information that you can use as a starting point so you can actually study on one hand to combat that misinformation. Then secondarily, you have to engage in ritual practice so you can actually have real, experiential knowledge. So you have information that you can gather, and we put that information out there, and then experiential knowledge coming from direct ritual practice. Those are the two things alone as well as in combination that, eradicates all of that nonsense talking about extraterrestrials. And it is true. Of course, the whites in Alice Springs understood that Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and pseudo-esotericism, these different things, are the majority of our people, but some of our people wouldn't go for that. So for that small minority who wouldn't go for that, then they give them extraterrestrialism, they give them interracialism, they give them dissexuality, homosexuality, they give them, all different kinds of things. They're always trying to, other people they give drugs, other people they give them entertainment, like, Real Housewives of Atlanta, all that kind of nonsense. Whatever they can do to distract our people from reality, whatever they feel like the personality of the person will be drawn to, then they create a platform to draw them away from reality and draw them into some nonsense. So they cast a wide net and try to capture as many people with the traditional fake religions. But the ones who don't catch on to that, who need something more sensational, then they give them something more. But of course they can't prove any of that. You don't even have to entertain debating and arguing. You can just give them information, real information, and then leave them alone, leave them to themselves. And they're going to have to, argue with themselves. They're going to have to get up in the mirror in the morning and look in the mirror every day and see if they're still trying to fight with themselves about fictional extraterrestrials.
Okay. Will in our culture, since we learned a lot of things about Earth and how it relates to the other stars and planets and stuff, like Mercury and Saturn and different things like that, did we acknowledge at all or become aware of anything living on other planets, or did we not have any concern about it, or did we how did we? Is there any reference on how we viewed that?
Not in the sense of people traveling from other planets coming over here. It's not that. So we recognize that just like this is a planet and there are living entities here, of course there are millions and millions and millions of planets and so forth, so they would have their own ecosystem and have their own living entities and so forth. But that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing. Like if somebody living 1,000 light years away, that has nothing to do with what we're doing. We still have, no matter what, you still have your own function to execute in creation. You came into the world to execute a specific function. That's what your function is, notwithstanding who may or may not exist in different places. That's not going to change who you are, what your function in the world is, how you've been designed, how you're to operate. The forces in nature govern various planets, suns, moon, stars, all across creation. The same divinity. So Ra and Raet, whether they're animating star 100,000 light years away or animating our star, they're still Ra and Raet, and we're still connected to them, and we still have a specific function because we have incarnated in Asase Afua, in this Earth Mother. So that's what our focus is.
Mm-hmm. That's how I actually explained it to somebody. Not totally like that, but I was able to help them to see how, those other planets, they're there and we're here, and we have a purpose and a function here, and that's what we're supposed to carry out. And I was speaking to them, letting them know that, that the whole concept of the aliens with the eyes, that they draw the pictures and all this other stuff, I said that whole thing is just pretty much made up through the perversity of, white culture and stuff like that. And I said, and we need to totally reject that because that's not true at all. And ultimately, that was the end of that. But there is one more question, and I know and it was kind of an important question to me, and it's when you have a grandparents that's really, really, I mean, they've been going for years, and you know how it be, like they 70 or 80, and they still just really steeped in Christianity. Well, to some people it may be Islam or whatever, but a false religion. And they've named you incorrectly or named their children incorrectly, and then their children's name. So, you know, if a grandchild has to talk to their grandparent and they really standing for who they are and they're going to, you know, reestablish their pure culture and live according to their rightful name, their soul's name, how would they approach their grandparents if they haven't spoke to them in a while, or any other parent or person in their family, you know, when they first talk to them? Do they introduce themselves with their new name? Do they introduce themselves with their old name if they're totally letting it go? How would you handle that situation? I know a lot of people who are going through that will appreciate how to do that.
Well, yeah, and what it is you just like anything else, you let them know what you've done, what your new name is, what that, and to the extent that they are listening, you can explain it in a detailed way, or you can explain it in a, you know, a brief way. But once they know that you're serious and this is what it is, then that's what it's going to be. So you have some family members who are resistant at first. They may think it's a phase you're going through, or they're just mad because you're no longer going to church or something like that. They'll try not to call you by the name and things like that. But over time, when they see this is what it really is and you're not changing and it's not ever going back to any, you know, fake label, any English label, typically what happens is they end up coming around, because even if they're resistant at first, everybody you're in connection with, they're, you know, calling you and, you know, addressing you properly. And after a while, the only people left who are not are the people who are trying to be resistant, and they realize it's just foolish. Plus, you're going to be, you know, correcting that on a regular basis. So over time, it ends up, you know, winding down. That resistance is to wind down. Some people are not resistant up front, but, you know, who are against stuff like that. But once they see that's what it is, then that's what it is. So you're not going to. So this is the new reality. That's all there is to it.
Madase Kwesi, and I really enjoyed the show. This is Aku. Talk to you again soon. I want to say thank you for those answers. I really appreciate it, and I'm quite sure that the listeners do as well.
Okay, Medase, I appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Okay, so that was the. Let me make sure. I want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Okay, that was the last call on the phone line, so we're going to end the broadcast here. But once again, Blog Talk Radio listeners, we just added this new button on the publications page. So the entire 25 book set is $125, and that includes shipping. But then, of course, also we have our regular discounts for the first 5 books that we were talking about earlier. First 5 books for $40. That's Kuku Tuntum, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, dealing with the cosmological foundation of creation, like we talked about tonight, as well as proving the fictional characters Muhammad and Moses and Jesus and Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Buddha, Brahman. These fictional cartoon characters never existed. Go into detail about that, proving that in the book. Ubin Shang, The Ancestral Summons, dealing with ritual practices. Afuraikai, the origin of the term Africa, that cosmological foundation, proving that Afuraikai is in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs. Maranechi, divine law, love, and divine hate, the expansive and contractive poles of divine order. And the Okra complex, the soul of AKANFO, the nature of the Ka. The Ka is the soul, the Ori, the Okra. Those 5 books, the first 5 is $40. That's a permanent discount, a 20% discount. And then any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. So, for example, the first 10 books is $66 for the first 10 books. No matter what number of books you order, that supports the work we are doing, whether it's one book or the entire 25-book set for 125, that supports the work that we're doing. And check out the trailer for the documentary. You can check it out now at fundraiser.com/Amadokafo Adebisa. We posted it on Facebook, on our website. It's on the publications page on the website. If you'd like to support the work we're doing, please support. Take a few minutes to make a contribution. You can receive one or more of our books in return for your contribution. If you like, just send us a message when you make the contribution at the fundraiser site. And Yedase, we thank everyone for tuning into the broadcast. And Yebeshia Bio, we will meet again. What's up?